in general, there is an enormous amount of possibilities to put up an API and a GUI and call it whatever name you would like to call it, as long as it serves as an AC/DC in order to do the data transformation. Yeah, that is one thing. The other thing is, and that is also where Federators is about, is to provide the infrastructure to do the data dissemination. And that's actually the difficult part of the federated project, because you have to get the data from one place to the other. And one app or an API or a GUI is only the kind of access in order to get started. And we want to enable and empower all the participants not to only get started, but also to exchange data. And that is the difference. So it's good to have one app, but it's only the starting point.
I think it's important to go back to your first slide about the cartoons of the space. To summarize, maybe the people will go back to your presentation to understand a bit better the icons you were using, to get back where we are starting from and where we want to move to. So I think this lecture on the lab will be useful to be analyzed based on that presentation or vice versa. Then we can have a really a cognitive approach, a loop to understand every aspect, but that's one point. Then another question is, could you tell a little bit more on event structure?
Yes, I can. So what we see in the outside world, there are lots of definitions for event structures. We took one called load, unload. I know of many different others used in other areas. So what we did is we have basic event structures integrating or linking association, creating association between any two digital twins. So, or between a digital twin and a location. So we will have an event structure that says the truck has arrived at a location. So that's the association that's created. The second event will be the container is loaded on the truck. So we all have these basic structures and we can combine them in any way we want. We can combine them in load, unload, pick up, drop off, fire points, whatever you want. So I hope this answers the question.
I hope so. We have another one, unless I see that. Okay, can you please elaborate more on the semantic model and how it relates to future EFTI data model? Under the regulation, will we need to adopt such a data model? I don't know if you or even...
Yeah, I can answer that question. So the EFTI data set, or data, you could call it data set or data model, that's a view on the semantic model. So it's a combination of what you could call concepts, properties, whatever, how it's defined in the semantic model. And so you could create the FD data model view on the semantic model. And that's it. And then what we could do is we could generate APIs with JSON or XML that support this FD data view if needed, or we could say it's all in triples. So it's a semantic data. Whatever is required, we can provide. We are currently working on what we call the semantic adapter. So to come from the JSON or the XML API type of stuff to the semantic data and vice versa. That's the famous round trip that Henk always mentioned in his talks for DTLF. So these are things that are under development. I hope this answered the questions also.
Then we have another one, how to combine event structure related to one transaction, order for shipment to, for example.
Also a good question again, Herman. So this shipment or transaction, it's a combination of events where the user defines a single event. So he says, I have my transaction, and in this transaction, it's about a container, it's about a truck, and it's about the place of loading, place of discharge. For him, it's one event. For us, it's multiple events to share the data semantically. But he shouldn't be cared, the one that defines this structure. He shouldn't see it. He just submits his order, and the order is broken down into semantic data. And at the receiving side, you can reconfigure it the way you want. So the infrastructure takes care of all the semantics and transforms it in the meantime between the input and the output.
I think a friend of you or a fan of you is putting another question on the first two labs, so CAS and FID and Rail. Made me think of,
Yes.
of pilot we did on core differently from the end user perspective. I guess there is a difference somewhere, but where?
The question looks simple, but it's quite difficult. Yeah, so these first two living labs, the CAS one is about customs, border crossing, and that's customs involved. Core was about border crossing. The only thing what's here is in core, we looked at the perspective from customs. So from Dutch customs, getting data of what they call the data pipeline. And the CAS one is more about the flow of the goods, reporting to customs, Norwegian, Finnish, and then they take action and so on. So it's more from the flow perspective versus the single perspective of a customs authority that we had in core. What was the second living lab? No, I forgot.
RDF.
The rail track. That's basically the same. So it's looking at the flow of a wagon, following the wagon, where in core we want to look at the data from the customs perspective. So these are all the different views that you can have on the data. You can follow the goods, or you can look at what happens in your territory crossing borders. And that can all be combined. Yep.
Okay. Actually, before I had a request from Rudy to intervene on just before we're going on with the question. Rudy, you wanna say something? I saw that you were posting on the
we should not create confusion. I think that the one-up for authorities will be completely aligned with the solution that Wout is presenting from the perspective of the BDI architecture. The objective of WADAP is a little bit different. It's we are sitting together with the authorities also to define what is going to be the end user interface. And we have something special because we are going to try and understand how the ontology that we are the federated ontology is interoperable with existing standards like the one of WCO and UNC-FACT. So the two fit very, very well together. Okay, we have some work to do, but that's also what Roland proposed in the beginning. We have two phases, and now in the second phase, we need to go and go an additional month. But don't consider it that we have a left and a right solution here. We only have one straightforward. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry if I move really quickly. I have also in the chat the request to intervene to the DG officer concerning EFID, Leah Pottage. Sorry if maybe the pronunciation is not properly. If you want to add something, if you hear us.
Yes, I can hear you, and good afternoon. No, I think definitely. I mean, we're very interested from the perspective of the European Commission, obviously, as we will need to set up the implementation specifications for the FT regulation, both as regards the future so-called data model, as well as the IT systems to be used both by the operators and by the authorities. So in that sense, what is being piloted in federated is would be of much interest to us, and certainly we have been looking forward to hear where the pilot is going, and we will invite the consortium to present, or the lab developers to present us in more detail the proposed solution and how we can take that into account. So thank you. I think that will require definitely more detailed discussion to understand that. Thank you.
Super, great. So thank you very much also for your contribution. Then we have a last some other question. Just a second to share the screen so we can see it's. Okay, so we are. So how will we ensure sufficient competition for trader lands?
This is not about competition with existing platforms. We try to support, that's what Rula told. We have to use existing investments and have to integrate with them. So what we already did for the customs application that I showed briefly, we integrated TradeLens data into their dashboard. So it's just another platform that we seek integration with. And we will continue to do this and by providing also them the tools and the means to do it. So no competition, just using what there is.
Good. I think the other two comments of Rudy, if that Rudy is that Rudy, were already described. So I think we